right? Because that's Mad Dog's thing.
That's the doggy, bro.
That's the doggy. It's
Right.
a good middle of the night to everybody in Europe tuning in.
How you guys doing?
I'm fantastic. Nick, check this out. I've learned so much since you were here last time.
Oh, yeah?
This morning, I bet a parlay, Liverpool to win, and the guy that I thought was the Jets head coach, Salah, to score the goal, and I won. Who's it better? It's better to be me. Nobody.
There it is. There's the money right there, baby.
That's it. Something's going on with my camera.
Soto's got the money.
Yeah, Juan Soto's got the money.
All for the next 20 years on his payroll, and he wouldn't even notice.
What baseball team are you a fan of, Nick?
Unfortunately, the Mets, who just paid Soto the entire business for the next 80 years. So
how do you?
I feel bad for you guys, man.
You know, it's on par. It's on par with the whole organization. That's exactly what they do. They overspend on. Listen, he's a phenomenal player. Is he worth $800 million? Give me a break.
Nobody is.
Nick, didn't they just do this with Scherzer and Verlander 2 years ago and realize that it probably shouldn't do this?
Listen, I think what happens is you sit in the shadow of the Yankees for so long, and you just decide we're gonna need some headlines whenever we can get them, and if it costs $800 million to do it, they say fine, we'll do it, and they'll continue to lose, frankly. So.
But that owner's got FU money.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah, but it's $1 billion. You're gonna feel 800 million no matter how much money you have.
I mean, listen, I think you'd feel it if you had 8 million and you spent 90% of it on one player, hoping he's gonna revitalize your franchise. Listen, we still have Bobby Bonilla Day for the next 30 years. They pay Bobby Bonilla on July 1st. Millions of dollars, and they're doing so for the next 30 years. So listen, I get a little upset. I can't even talk about the Mets and the way they spend money, but they love losing and they're really good at it. So,
but you know what? They do have a ton of space.
They do. They have a ton of space, but the problem is they have in the NFL you would call it dead cap, and in baseball I forget what the term is, but they're spending more than any other team in Major League Baseball on players no longer on the roster. And I think that tells you what you need to know.
That doesn't affect them with their cap, right?
Well, there is no cap.
Doesn't.
It's a salary tax in baseball.
Yeah. So they pay tax, and what they do to be under the salary cap when they go out and they buy these very expensive players is they can defer the payments. So similar to what you're seeing actually with Chelsea FC, with the new owner, Todd Bowley.
You see that transition? This guy's a pro. He went right over into soccer. Look at him. Nice, man.
Getting us back on track, baby. Listen, I don't know too much about baseball. I could talk soccer all day, baby. So what they're doing at Chelsea is the new owner is skirting the financial fair play regulations by giving all of his players a minimum 7-year contract. Some of these players are on 10, 11-year contracts, completely unheard of in the sport, especially over in Europe, simply because players aren't good for that long. However, instead of rolling the dice with his scouting department and trying to figure out which players are worth the money in the short term, he's buying everyone he can get his hands on, and he said, we'll sort it out later. They've got largest active roster in the Premier League by about 15 players. A lot of them never see the field. But it's finally starting to click. I mean, they're in 4th place. They're starting to figure it out. But, boy, it's an expensive experiment.
I'm shocked at where they are in the table. Shocked. Just because new manager. Right. And like you just said, what do they got, like 40 players on the roster? And you can only press, 18 on game day? Yeah. Like, it's insane.
Yeah. It's insane, and I can't – I mean – first of all, how do you have a locker room big enough for the players? Second of all, how do you walk into the locker room as the manager and say, okay, you guys who are making 200, there's 8 of you making 300,000 a week, 2 of you making 200,000 a week, and the rest of you making 150. You guys go play on the practice squad. I'll call you in a year when I need you.
Yeah, I know. It's insane. But I got to tell you, man, that manager's doing one hell of a job. I'm impressed.
Maresca. Yeah, listen, I think honestly at the end of the day they needed someone with passion. They tried to go too cute with Graham Potter, who's, clever when it comes to intelligence, but he's dry, he's boring. And when you have that big of a squad of all of these overpaid players with all of the egos, nobody's got chemistry. You needed someone to come in and grab the bull by the horns and be like, listen, this is what we're doing. This is who's playing. This is our system. Follow me or get the hell out. And he did. And it's working. So kudos to them.
So we can switch this up a little bit on what we want to talk about. So let's just get right to it. Liverpool, like AJ
you're not gonna lead off with the Carrick Rangers? Nick, do you even know who the Carrick Rangers are?
I don't.
Well, I own them.
Is this a team that you now
I own them, buddy.
You're talking one of the owners.
I'm one of the owners, pal. Since we've last spoken, I've invested in an English soccer team. I'm sorry, an Irish soccer team that has beaten Celtic. That's their claim to fame.
Hey, that makes them very famous in Ireland and probably to two of us in the United States.
And we're gonna.
It was an alumni game for the Celtic, though, right, AJ?
I don't know, but we're about to shell out $800 billion to get Messi and Ronaldo and Pele. We're going for Pele too. We're going all in on this
thing. Yeah. Hey, listen, shoot big. Why not? Why not?
So Nick, I got to ask you, since I'm a Liverpool guy, you're a Man U guy.
Yep.
I've been reading some stuff on this, but let him walk away or let him resign him. The biggest one, the obvious one, Mo.
Listen, I've had a lot of debate about this over the last couple of weeks. I mean, you see it everywhere. You see it in the papers. You see it on the comment section everywhere. My personal opinion. So I did some research on this, and I hate looking at Liverpool. I don't even want to look at their stats. It makes me sick. But here's a very important fact, and it's very relevant to Mo Salah, right? Over the last 5 seasons, not including this year, the 5 completed seasons prior to this one, to compete with Manchester City for the title, which Liverpool did, and in fact, they won one of them, you needed 90 goals while only allowing 30 goals. That's a plus 60 goal differential, which if you think about it is insane. You play 38 games. You're scoring over 2.5 goals a game, and you're letting in less than a goal a game. And I think the case for Mo Salah is the fact that the one season where he was injured, which I believe was 2021, he missed part of the season. They only scored 75 goals and they finished in 6th. Those other 4 seasons when he was healthy, 90 plus goals in the team, 20 to 30 plus from Mo Salah every year, and they finished 2nd at worst. He puts them in the top 2 every year, and he contributes a third of the goals you need. And when you need to score 90 plus goals, granted, this season is different. Manchester City is not firing. However, they will come back and with a vengeance at some point. If you need 90 plus goals to win the league, you need Mo Salah on that team. He's not easily replaced. And granted, we can say the same thing. I know we're going to talk about Virgil. I know we're going to talk about Trent. But in terms of Mo, he's got, in the 22 games they've played this season, 28 goals and assists. He's either got a goal and an assist or both in every single game he's played this year.
He just tied Rooney for most games. He just tied Rooney for most games in the EPL with a goal and an assist.
Yep.
And we know he's going to get past him at some point. Yep. I say he's 32 years old. Beginning of next season, he'll be 33. But in the form that he's in, and you see him at the end of the games when he's ripping his shirt off, the shape that this guy is in. And even today, watching the game, the speed he still has out on that wing. Yeah. I don't even know how you do not even have a contract in this guy's hands yet. Right. Because what's today? The 10th?
Yeah. So they made their first offer 2 days ago. They finally put an offer on the table, December 8th, before he can walk away for free on the first. I think The argument you have against not signing him is the fact that he wants a short-term mega deal and he's not going to stick around long-term regardless. Again, these are all rumors. We're not sitting down in the negotiating room with Salah, but the fact that he wants either 1 year or 4 years and he wants none of this 2 or 3 year obligation tells me that he's already made a plan of where he wants to go next. If he's going to finish his career with Liverpool, he wants to make sure he makes enough money to make it worth it, which I don't necessarily know that I believe that. I think he wants to stay and break the records, but I think he also wants to get paid what he's worth.
Well,
I think you got to keep him simply for the goals. Simply for the goals. And like you said, he's still fit. He's still fit. However, we saw with Cristiano Ronaldo, maybe the fittest man on the planet, pace can fall off very quickly. And without the pace, Mo Salah, is he the same player?
No.
No.
But he's the eighth highest paid player in the world right now.
Already, right.
You're not including Mets in that lump of players, are you?
No
Who?
Mets.
No Mets are included in that list. Okay.
No Mets. No Daniel Jones. 4 years, $40 million.
But where? And full disclosure, I read this somewhere else. They kind of did like a knockout pool of teams that A, can afford him,
right,
and B, where it would make sense for him to go. And when you knock out all the big boys, they're saying PSG.
They're saying PSG. I think a lot of it is who can afford him, and I think the other part of it, frankly, is who still plays a 4-3-3 that can afford to have an out-and-out winger that doesn't play defense. A lot of these modern systems are, now granted, he did very well under Klopp, press, go all the time, challenge the ball. But as he gets older, we see with players like Messi, they're not tracking back, and they don't want to, and they possibly can't. Right? So PSG has one of the best, fullbacks on the right side in the world, Achraf Hakimi, he's a stud. He can run up and down the pitch all day. He can deliver crosses, but he's a phenomenal defender one-on-one. And you can leave him on an island and he'll be fine. He's played behind Messi. He's played behind Neymar and the like. Nobody who tracks back. I think it would be a fit. And as we know, money is no object for Paris. So would it work? Yes. Frankly, I don't think he wants to leave. Why would you go to Paris, who perennially underperforms?
He'd still have the ability to do Champions League. That's it. But yeah. I think he stays. I think they work it out. I think they keep him on the wages he's on now for at least a year.
Right.
I wouldn't go past 2.
I wouldn't go past 2. And frankly, listen, Saudi Arabia will still take him at 34.
I know.
They'll write the checks. They'll pay him.
So for me, I don't think he's the most important of the 3.
Right.
But I think it's a no-brainer. So let's go to the one who I think is the most important. And you probably might think that I'm nuts. But I think it's Van Dijk.
You're not nuts. Pay him whatever he wants. You're not nuts. Pay him whatever he wants. And here's the reason. Despite the fact that he's 33, and everybody's harping on the fact that he's 33, there are plenty of central defenders who are not half as intelligent and physically capable as Virgil van Dijk, who played into their late 30s at the highest level. Thiago Silva is a perfect example. He was slower than dirt, but he was so intelligent that he made up for it, and he played at Paris, and then he came back and he played in the Premier League again with Chelsea successfully. Back to the stat I was giving you earlier. If you want to let in 30 or less goals a season to challenge for the Premier League title, Virgil van Dijk is your starting defender without question. If you want to build that team to challenge for the top of the league, he's the rock. He's rarely, if ever, injured. He's constantly reliable. He makes fewer mistakes than the majority of defenders. Statistically, 5 out of the last 6 seasons, he has been one of, if not the top 3 hardest defenders to dribble by.
Mm-hmm.
And he's got the intangibles. Nobody wants to play against him. So I say you pay him whatever he wants. The team starts with defense. Defense wins championships. Pay him. Any team would be lucky to have him, but they'd be crazy to let him go.
And let's get to TAA. And I am so torn on this guy. So torn. Because he shows you flashes. His passing ability is unbelievable, right?
Yep.
But his defense is terrible.
Terrible.
And he has a hard time getting into the England squad. So
because he can't defend. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, he's 25, he's 26, but you got Connor Bradley. And I don't know, that tackle on Mbappe 2 weeks ago by Bradley was insane.
Yeah,
That's
the blood going.
Yeah, so I mean, where it sticks in my craw that he can walk away for free at the end of the month. I don't know if you bring him back on the wages he's going to want.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, even if you pay him, so I'm with you. First and foremost, in terms of his value to the team, of the 3 pending contracts, the lowest by far. And I know it's very sentimental. He had the corner kick that won him the semifinals of the Champions League. The quick corner, he played a phenomenal game, whatever. I discredit that because I'm not a fan, right? I don't get sentimental about that. I look at him as a liability. However, from a financial standpoint, I would have to think, even if you pay him $500,000 a week for 40 weeks, you spend $20 million on him, which is an insane wage. I'm exaggerating, of course, just to make the math easy. But you pay him $20 million in salary next season, you can sell him for $80 million. So you have a $60 million profit if you're paying him $500,000 a week. For me, financially, it makes sense to bring him back. The problem is, if Real Madrid calls their bluff and they wait another year, you just wasted $20 million in salary and he walks away next winter. So,
well, I think another question, particularly for him, because I don't think it's a question for the first two,
right.
Does he even want to stay?
Now, I don't believe everything I've read in the media, but he's been playing cat and mouse with Real Madrid for almost 2 years now.
Yeah.
Ever since that he was starring in the Champions League, I think he saw the glitz and the glamour, and I think he believes he's of that level. I don't think he realizes he'd be on the bench. They have one of the best right backs in the world, Danny Carvajal. So, if he's willing to go be on the bench, great. But I don't think he is. And I think at the end of the day, if he's real with himself, he'll stay, and he'll stay for a reasonable wage, simply because he doesn't have any other options. So, but yeah, he's the one I would let walk away from the table easily.
If he was to stay, I got to figure out a way to get him into that midfield on a basically permanent basis and get him out of the right back. I mean, today, watching the game, he spent 80% of the game in the midfield anyways.
Yeah, with the inverted fullback position that they love to play. Yeah, that they stole, frankly, from the Manchester City format. Yeah.
Yeah, so but if he goes, I think he's the most easily replaceable.
He's easily replaced, and I think had the midfield not developed so well under Arne Slot. I mean, you've got a guy, Ryan Gravenberch, who was useless until Slot shows up, and he's finally turning into essentially a non-droppable midfielder, which I never thought I'd be saying that. I thought he was an unfortunate waste of talent. Slot's got him playing lights out most weeks. He still makes some silly mistakes, but if they had the gap in midfield and you could kind of justify slotting, Trent in there alongside. Now, granted, as a playmaker, he's great, but he's still a defensive liability whether you put him in the middle or on the wing. So I don't think he fits. And I think that's, a luxury they can no longer afford, having him on the payroll. I wouldn't pay him.
Hey, can I get a word in?
Yeah.
If you're following on Twitter, you got a big Twitter audience right now, and you just picked up a whole shitload. Can you say that in England? Shitload? How do you say that? What's the proper terminology over in England for shitload? You just picked up a whole shitload of Twitter followers. You see me here. I'm working the socials, but give us a shout. Let us know where you're watching from if you get a question, and soon after the new year, you'll be able to call us. We'll have a toll. I don't know if they'll be able to call from Europe. I'm going to have to find that out. I guess we're going to have to get a phone line where people can call us from Europe. And the long distance doesn't exist anymore, does it? This is not 1984, is it?
You're gonna
have to do what? You broke up there, buddy.
You're gonna have to get a WhatsApp line.
Yes. Well, whatever it is, we want to hear from you. So there is commenting on Twitter when you're watching these things or on X, but there's a lot of people that don't know how to actually open it up and leave comments on X because it's fairly new. But give us a shout out and let us know where, or give us your thoughts, and we'll. Well, I won't if it's not Wrexham. Where's it over here? I'm not commenting on it unless, of course, it's the what's the name of that team I own? Oh, the Carrick Rangers. Yes, the Carrick Rangers. That's right. Go. Yes. Boom.
So, Nick, going back to Gravenberch, the entire pre-show today on Paramount Plus, that's all they did was talk about him and what Slot has done with him.
Yeah.
They talked about it all game long. I don't know if you got a chance to watch the game.
I haven't yet. It's on the old DVR.
But Becker, man, what a way back into the squad. And I was literally ticked off that they dropped Coleman and put Becker back in.
Yeah.
Just because of the form that he's been on.
Right.
But holy Christ, I mean, did they need Becker today, man? When you watch the game, unbelievable.
Yeah, I've seen the commentary on it, and it's interesting because he next year will be part of the same conversation that we're having right now in December. He's up for another contract.
Well, so they were talking about during the game, who's to say Liverpool doesn't sell him this summer? Because they also bought that kid that starred at the Euros and loaned him right back to I forget the name of the Portuguese team he's on.
Right.
But they just paid $40 million for the guy or the kid and loaned him back. So bring him back over off of loan and put Conan in there. He's been playing lights out, and sell Becker on
for the
while you keep.
Yeah, I think financially it'll make sense if you keep Virgil and you keep him out. You know, and I say will make sense. Listen, we all have sentimental value toward a lot of these players, especially the Liverpool fans, because he's been there for the glory years, right? I mean, can you name a keeper nearly half as dominant as him in the last 10, 15 years in the Premier League?
No.
So we're going back, and you know, of course, the Manchester City fans will fight with me, and they'll tell me it's Ederson, but I don't have a lot of respect for guys with smiley face tattoos on their neck. It's just a personal preference. AJ, you would love this guy.
Sorry, buddy. I didn't know you could see it.
Did you show Matt your smiley face tattoo yet?
No, hold on. I'll show it to him.
But, you know, they paid $75, $80 million for Becker. You can't put yourself in a position with a player like that at this point in their career when you have two other guys that are going to be on your payroll that fit the bill.
Yeah, well, it's interesting you mentioned that. They have a succession plan at keeper. They didn't really have one at center back and right wing, which makes you wonder. Listen, I think they're in a poor position to negotiate the other positions, frankly. But
I mean, I love Gomez, but there's a reason he's only playing right now.
Right. Well, Konate tore his knee, right? So he's out 3 to 6 months.
How do you spell that Komate? Because I'm taking some of these notes down. I'm going to send them to the GM over there in Carrick so we can line these players up.
You're going to sign him? Well, he's injured right now. You might get a discount.
Hey, I'm a bargain shopper. It's Christmas. Got it. Boom.
There you go. There it is.
So Nick, now I want to transition over to the debacle that is happening with your
board. Talking Dan Ashworth and the 5-month employment for $3 million. Yeah.
Is Rashford the new Roman?
Listen, I think at the end of the day, so Ineos came in. Jim Ratcliffe, came in and he wants to run this business efficiently. And they've seen, budget cuts. I think the The long story short is this: people who are not familiar with the situation. Dan Ashworth came over from Newcastle United. He had a non-compete, which was enforceable in England. So not only did he leave Newcastle to come to Manchester United, he was on paid leave for a period of time where he wasn't allowed to work for the club. So he's been on United's payroll for a long time, but he wasn't actually allowed to come to work. And he came into work for exactly 5 months. And two sets of stories I'm hearing and I'm reading, and I think The Athletic has the most coherent one. The reporters from The Athletic said the following: he was fired based on the fact that he was purely an analytical guy. And if you hear the names that he suggested as the new manager to replace Eric Ten Hag, I think you'd see a little bit more. It was Howe, it was Graham Potter, it was Thomas Frank, and the rumor on the street is Gareth Southgate. So a man who claims himself to be an analytical genius, who's going to revolutionize Manchester United, walked into a board meeting and said, I want to hire Gareth Southgate. I would have fired him too. Frankly, it's some of the most unattractive, statistically poor, unsuccessful football that we've seen. If you want a semifinals team, go to Tottenham. Gareth Southgate and Tottenham would work perfectly well together. The almost rans, the has-beens, etc. Now, my biggest problem with the firing is the fact that we made an announcement that made Manchester United look like it's run by kindergartners. They gave a 5-year-old kid, they said, hey, we just fired the third most important person in the entire club. Can you write a statement for us? And the statement said, we fired the man. Thanks for your time. I don't know if you've seen it. It's 2 sentences. Dan Ashworth and Manchester United have parted ways. Thanks for your time at the club. We wish you the best. It's like, what?
Well, this is part of the reason why we wanted to have you back on, because
we wanted him back on because he said Atlanta was going to win the MLS Cup, and I bet all my money on Atlanta. Now I got to make it back a little bit at a time.
Let's go back to that episode.
Oh yeah, I got a bone to pick. Well, you'll get there, I know, but yeah.
I got all the notes on that, AJ. Don't you worry. We're
talking MLS. I got the footage.
But getting back to United, like, it just seems like it's the same old vicious cycle again. Like, you got to give the guy some time.
You got to give the guy some time, and I think the biggest concern is that if he has a differing approach and a differing opinion, that's a fireable offense. That scares me. Because if the team starts to suck completely again, and the man who's in charge can't deal with people who do things a different way, we might as well have kept the old regime. We still have the Glazers as majority owners, and they did that.
Well, I'm reading on the mothership here that Arsenal's considering a move for Ashworth.
I think it's going to listen. He did a fantastic job at Newcastle, but that entire organization was already in the process of being gutted. Top down when the new ownership came over. Granted, in that situation, you had a complete takeover. In this case, Jim Ratcliffe and Ineos only own a quarter of the club, so they're getting to call a lot of the
running it. But he's running.
He's running it. I think the biggest problem with Ashworth is this, and again, it speaks to my question of what are decisions going to look like in the future. They had to have known that his entire success is based on analytics. It's data. It's what made him famous and successful in the first place. So I understand that you might think that his suggestions are a little ridiculous because they're only based on statistics, and soccer is played on a pitch, football is played on a pitch, not on a computer. Why didn't they know this about him when they hired him? That's part of my greatest concern, is that if this genius businessman is so good at running a business, how do you not know who you're hiring? Did you hire him just on name? Did you hire him because you thought we wanted to be Newcastle? No good reasons. And I think that's the biggest concern.
So I read something this morning, and do you know that Casemiro is on the same exact wage bill that Mo is?
Yes.
That should tell you the direction of where one is in the table and why the other one is where they are in the table.
Well, Yeah.
It's the personnel.
It's the personnel, top to bottom. And Liverpool's always run a tight ship financially. They've never been one to break the bank repeatedly. Now, they've had large expenses. Don't get me wrong. Fernando Torres was arguably grossly overpaid to Chelsea to acquire his services, right? Um, the the history, though, is development from within, prudent scouting, efficient spending of money so that you have a coherent team on equivalent wages who can play together. Manchester United has taken the New York Mets approach. We're going to throw as much money at as big of a name as we possibly can and hope he fits. Sometimes it works, but a lot of the times it's a complete waste.
So perfect example with Liverpool, Coutinho. Look at how much money they sold him to Barcelona for, and then what did they do with the money? They turned around and they bought Becker and they bought Van Dijk.
Yep. Yeah, it's fantastic when you can grow talent, develop it, and sell it on.
Or that you recognize and you find it when they're at a young age, and it's a cheap transfer.
Cheap transfer, yeah.
Before
they're famous.
I want to say, Man United's average transfer's got to be like 65, 70 million.
At least, at the very least, and 65, 70 million, and how many of them are failures, I think is the other problem. Is
right.
When Liverpool spends $70 million on a player, he works out. They've had very few busts over the years.
And they're selling them on for a good recovery. Where, Man United's buying, at 70 million and they're turning around and they can't give him away for 10.
Like Anthony, for example, who was 90 million. You know what he's valued on the transfer market right now? 14.
And he's how old? He's like, what, 23, 24?
I think he's 25, right in that range. He's garbage. So the club at the end of the day, Manchester United, as a football club, is a long way from success. The biggest problem is that the contrasting side, the reason that everybody spends money to invest in Manchester United is that as a business, it is very successful. Publicly traded company with, very generous advertising revenue every year. I would love to say that Jim Ratcliffe bought a quarter of the club to support the hopes and dreams of all of the fans, but let's be honest, his business bought it because it's a business and he wants to make money.
So I haven't seen anything. I haven't really read anything other than the initial firing and the backlash and everybody talking about it. Have they come out with a game plan yet?
So they're gonna promote Vivell, who is a level under Dan Ashworth, who has worked with Omar Barada before, who does have experience building teams, prudent recruitment. I can't remember what club he did it at. It was.
So why don't you leave Ashworth there for the analytical part and let this guy do the recruiting?
Because that's not fun. Frankly, I honestly think he was trying to make a point that if it's not done perfectly, it doesn't belong here. Whether or not that's effective, we could debate that all day long. I personally don't stand by it. But I think that's the point he's trying to make, is that if you're not extremely useful or contributing at a high level at this club, I don't care if you've been here for 5 months or 5 years, you got to go.
But, but these clubs all use analytics. I read about it all the time. They make them wear those physical activity vests underneath their jerseys. They figure out,
they're
all right,
bras. Call it what it is. It's a bra. All right, it's a bra. They're a bunch of wankers, right? That's the word to use. They're a bunch of wankers running around in bras.
But it's like, all right, Nick, I'm telling you to wear that because I want to see if you're a 60-minute player, a 75-minute player, a 90-minute player. So I know where I'm going to get you at 95 to 100% of your best.
Yeah.
And whether I need to know when you need to come off because you can't go the entire match. So all these clubs are doing all this stuff. Baseball brought this in. I'm pretty sure every sport is doing it at some level.
Yeah.
maybe Man U's got to catch up with the times.
I think they do, and I think the only reason it failed is because he wasn't able to put together a convincing case. I don't care what the statistics look like. You can't convince me that Graham Potter or Gareth Southgate was the right manager for Manchester United. So I think it's not so much that the tool is not useful or that Dan Athworth is ineffective at using it. I think he just made a poor proposal, frankly. And
I heard those two names. I didn't hear the other two names, but those two names would be an utter disaster
yeah,
at Man U.
yeah.
If
It would be a
anything,
disaster.
if anything, and I know Klopp wouldn't have done it, but for the environment they're in right now, it's kind of like how Liverpool was when they brought Klopp in there.
Right.
And it's to get that fiery, motivated guy to re-energize not only the squad and the players, but that fan base.
Right. Well, the problem is we tried that with Jose Mourinho.
I don't see. I don't think he. I don't think he motivates and gets the best out of players. I don't think he's a very good
That's true.
gaffer, to be honest with you.
Yeah,
Get
that's
some
fair.
young firecracker that can maybe relate to them. A lot of these guys that they've brought in, they're dinosaurs compared to these guys. I mean, look at Arne Slot. He's only 45 years old.
Right.
Compared to these guys when they're in their late 50s, early 60s. I don't know. They gotta stir the pot, shake the tree, figure something out. Because to be honest with you, like I was going over the table yesterday, and there's a lot of heavy hitters
Right.
that are down beneath 10th. I tried to get Tottenham guy on tonight as well with you, and it fell through due to work purposes. But like,
Yeah.
it's not right to me when you don't have Man United competing for Champions League places and making it a tougher season, A, to finish number one,
Right.
B, to finish in Champion League places.
Yeah, and I think it's good for the league because if you don't love Manchester United, you absolutely hate Manchester United.
But
It's
they're
good
good
for
for the league.
no, absolutely, and that's what I'm saying is they bring attention regardless of whether you hate them or love them, and it's important, especially for the smaller clubs, because it generates ad revenue. If Manchester United stinks and they're in 14th place, the majority of the world's not going to tune in to Peacock streaming of Brighton versus Manchester United at 7 a.m. They're just not going to do it. However, Manchester United's fourth in the table. They've got a manager who's actually doing something with the club. People who want to see them lose will tune in. People who want to see them win will tune in. So I think overall, from a league perspective, from viewership and simply to energize the fan bases, whether you love them or hate them, most of them hate them. It's good for the sport. So I agree with you there.
All right, let's get on to what
Can I make
happened.
one point? I'm looking at this table here for champions, and I found Man City in this table, and they're in 20th place behind Celtic. And I happen to know a guy who knows something about a team that has beaten Celtic at one point in the last 100 years. That's all I'm going to say.
I know that guy too. What do you know? What do you know?
To be fair, AJ, Man City didn't play today. They play tomorrow.
Yep.
Okay, well.
They play tomorrow, and boy, that's a team of two absolute powerhouses who are stinking it up in the Champions League this year.
8 points.
Nick, I was rooting so hard against Real today. So hard. Because I want to see them not I'm sick of seeing them win it every year. I want to see them not make the top 24.
Listen, can you imagine a bracket without Real Madrid? Barcelona is most likely going to make it based on their table. But if I read some of these names, AJ's eyes might cross over. Are you familiar with Bayer 04?
Bayer 04. That
sounds like an aspirin, right?
Yeah, or somebody's gaming handle. Yes.
So that's a team, Leverkusen in Germany. They are second in the Champions League table after 6 games played. Just an absolute sleeper. I know you like your underdog pace. Aston Villa in third. Inter Milan up there in fourth. That's the top of the table. You've got three teams with games in hand. You've got Barcelona, who hasn't played yet. Dortmund also plays tomorrow. And you guys might like this one, Brest.
Yeah, I was going to say, how are we not talking about Brest?
How are we not talking about Brest, baby? Game in hand. They could be in second place with a win tomorrow.
I know it's crazy. I don't know what this new format's doing, but I don't know if some of them are like, oh, we got 8 games to get in to qualify for the top 8 and get a bye. But yeah, I mean, Christ, if they lost today, if Real lost today, I'm pretty sure that they would have been out of the top 24 because PSG won, and
Right.
PSG is right behind them.
Yeah,
Dude, and Brest is going to win tomorrow because they're playing Shakhtar. I think that's one of Deion Sanders' kids, right? Shakhtar, who is not good. Who's not
Isn't
good
that
at
the
all.
quarterback for Colorado, Shakhtar?
Yes, I think so. He'd be drafted first in the NFL this year. But yeah, I'm all in on Brest tomorrow. I'm always all in on Brest, but especially tomorrow. How great would that be if Brest can overtake Liverpool? Well, you just lost 1,300 followers, Matt, on Twitter after I said that. Sorry.
I wouldn't be surprised with that statement. Come on, they just beat Real Madrid and Man City back to back, and convincingly.
Yeah, convincingly, which is the scary part for the rest of the world and the rest of us, frankly, who don't like Liverpool.
Yeah. So Nick, let's talk about what happened on Saturday.
A little bit of MLS Cup Final.
Yeah, man.
Yes, sir. So interesting run. Two teams with very different fortunes here. LA Galaxy, as I mentioned to you guys, and AJ will dispute this, the favorite to win it. Not the betting favorite. Not the betting favorite. Not your long dog, dark horse, Atlanta.
Atlanta didn't get far, Nick, just for the record, after you turned me on to them.
They lost to Orlando, who lost then in the semifinals to New York. Galaxy deserved to win it, frankly. Arguably, I think they were second overall behind Miami in total points during the season, and just a dominant performance. And they won the championship without their star player. Ricky Puig tore his knee in the semifinal.
And he played the whole game. He played half the game with the torn ACL.
Played half the game with a torn ACL.
That's a man.
He's lucky
bro.
He didn't make it worse, frankly. But I mean, listen, the kid's a baller. He's a phenomenal player, and they stepped up without him and won 2-1, 2 goals in the first half. The team played for him. You saw Paintsel scored the goal, pulled out his Ricky Puig jersey for the celebration. Touching moment, as they say. A dominant performance, and frankly, Red Bulls were asleep for the first 20 minutes. But I know we're going to talk about a little bit as the show progresses. But LA finally back on top for the first time in 10 years.
I said to AJ off air before we came on, I thought Red Bulls were going to lose 4-5-0. The way they looked coming out.
Yeah.
I was like, oh boy. And I'm here in New Jersey, so I was rooting like hell for them.
There you go.
But yeah, I mean, I'd say that they at least put one in, held on, stemmed the tide, but I thought it was going to get uglier.
Yeah, and it looked like it would. I think the pride kicked in, but boy, the confidence wasn't there. The 7th seed going into the playoffs, not quite as an unlikely run as we hoped Atlanta would give us, but still one of the bottom seeds coming out of the East, and you can't rely on 1 or 2 players. Frankly, we saw that with Miami. We talked about that, last time I was on the show. They've got a couple of superstars. Forsberg is a phenomenal midfielder, attacking midfielder, genius. He's got the flowing blonde hair. You love to see him play, but it's not enough. I think a little bit more senior leadership in that team is going to help. The experience, frankly, of getting there. Red Bull's no stranger. I mean, they have won the Cup. They're one of they've been to the final before. They have not won the Cup. They're one of the original teams. Granted, they were rebranded. They used to be the New York, New Jersey Metro Stars, as you remember, Jersey Man. Those were the days of Mino Raiola in goal, Jersey legend. I don't know if you remember him. Yeah, the keeper, yeah.
Yeah, and my wife went to school with, I can't remember his name. He's from New Jersey. He was from Chatham.
Not Luch.
No, not
Oh, okay.
Luch.
Not Luch. All right.
But he played on the Metro Stars as well when they first
That's
came
cool.
out. I'll have
That's
to.
cool.
I'll have to. He now owns a ton of bars in Morristown.
Okay, yeah, Morristown boy. Good lacrosse in Morristown.
Yeah. He's actually Chatham, which is down the road. But yeah, I can't remember his name right now. But he played for the Metro Stars.
Not Silvio Dante, is it?
No.
Okay,
And
that was a bada bing.
every Thanksgiving they would have like a tournament at their house in Chatham, and the Metro Stars players would come and play in their pickup tournament on Thanksgiving.
That's cool. That's
Yeah.
cool.
So,
Meanwhile, I just had my dad throwing a football, and I thought that was cool. Guess not.
yeah. So LA, this was their sixth, right?
This was their sixth. The closest is DC with 4. Um, DC United's got 4 championship titles in the history of MLS. LA Galaxy on top. They had 5. This was number 6. But they hadn't won it since 2014. So 10-year hiatus. A couple of the other teams on the rise.
I feel like DC hasn't won it in forever.
Forever. I want to say the last one was maybe, I think they might have won in 15 after LA won. I could be mistaken about that, but times have changed. I think especially with, now granted it didn't happen in 2014, but the introduction of another Los Angeles team, they've been dominant in the headlines, in everything other than signing fancy designated players in Los Angeles. LA built their reputation on signing the big names, right? We all know they signed David Beckham, to revolutionize the sport in the U.S. They brought in Landon Donovan, cult hero for U.S. soccer, one of the best strikers that ever played. They brought in Ibrahimovic, who, boy, he was fun to watch. He didn't win the title for him, but
Was it?
yeah. I remember his very first game, the very first game he played, he scored on a volley from midfield. And
That's
it was
right.
one of the most fantastic goals I've ever seen in my life.
Those were the good old days before the players were all wearing bras underneath their kits.
He might have been wearing a bra, but he was the one who made bras cool, man.
But that goal wasn't as sweet as his 50-yard bicycle kick for the Sweden national team.
Yeah, that's a special player, man. I mean, say what you want about his personality. He, completely full of himself, thought he was God's gift. Actually, he didn't think he was God's gift. He kind of thought he was God, frankly.
Yeah.
But
they had Stevie G. They had Gerard there. They bring in all the big names there.
Yeah. They brought all the big names, and it worked for a while. But I think while they were busy signing the big names, they didn't put the foundation in, the roots. Player development, young player scouting. You talked about one of Liverpool's biggest strengths is scouting players while they're young and getting them at good value. And then obviously developing your own talent. And Ricky Puig is a perfect example of that. Almost lucky for them. And I hate to say this because I hate when players get injured. I feel for them with all the work they put in. LA Galaxy is lucky that Ricky Puig just got injured, considering the European transfer window opens in 3 weeks. Because I think he'd be gone. I think LA Galaxy would get a phenomenal offer, tens of millions of dollars for his services. And he's not going to go because he's hurt, frankly.
I would say this. If I was a betting man, I would say he would go for double what Cincinnati just paid for the guy we talked about last time that you were on.
Oh,
I think he'd go for at least 30. I mean, I know it was 16, but I think there'd be an offer of 30 for him, if not more.
Yeah, if not more. And I think the age is a factor. And frankly, if you're dominating a league where Lionel Messi is the headline player, it doesn't matter what league it is. You're dominating that league, you're worth money on the international market. And Ricky Puig showed us, kind of what that looks like. So it was cool. Look, it was cool to see them win. As a kid born and raised in New York, I've lived all over the country. Los Angeles was not my favorite place, but they're special to the league. They, like I said, they signed Beckham for, love and money and the eternal commitment of having him as a spokesman for the club until he dies. But that really helped jumpstart the sport in the U.S. because people didn't care. people didn't pay attention. But when you put together a package like that, it gets people watching, and they did the sport a favor. So, I like to see them win with some homegrown players, some maybe not as internationally known names, but certainly household names in the U.S.
So to end the show, speaking of international names and former teammates,
Mascherano.
yeah, man.
Listen, oh man, I wish I could say I was happy
Is that
about
a
it.
Messi request? Is Messi thinking he's like Aaron Rodgers now and thinking he calls the shots?
I think part of it, yes, it's the only thing that makes me stop from jumping directly to that conclusion is all of the knowledge we have about Messi behind closed doors, in interviews, how he acts. He just doesn't seem like the type of guy. I think honestly, at this point, Inter Miami hadn't done their homework. Frankly, they weren't prepared to bring a new manager in. Javier Mascherano coached the youth team. He coached a lot of the current young stars. Kermansky, I think, is one of the biggest examples of a player that flourished under Mascherano with the youth development at Inter Miami. Um, and they probably asked Leo. Frank, let's be honest, they asked him. They asked him, "Hey, would you be okay if your buddy Javier runs the team?" I think Messi will be calling a lot of those shots. The question is that going to be good for the rest of the players? Yes, he proved that he can work with the youth, but man, I mean, he didn't do very well with the Argentine under-20 team. He didn't
No.
do very well with the Argentine Olympic team. He had a very, very short professional managerial stint, which he did very poorly. I think managing an MLS is a lot harder than, Jorge Mas and Miami thinks it is. I think they're in trouble, frankly.
At first I was like kind of okay with the hiring because I thought maybe it's to bring him in to work with the old Barca guys,
Right.
that he's so familiar with.
Right.
But they are a short-term plan, with those guys. Like as we talked about previously, they're on their last legs. They're old. They're at the end of it, the twilight. And I just think, like you said, that they weren't prepared and they just said to Messi, "Hey, you think you could do it? Yeah, my fellow countryman, fellow former teammate, of course he
Yeah.
can do it."
Yeah, of course you
I
can
don't
do
know
it.
if it's smart, but you know what? I wasn't crazy about the slot hiring in Liverpool either.
Right. Fair enough.
So I don't know. Give it a year, see what happens while they got the older guys still around, and we'll see. But you know what? We both could be wrong.
Yeah. Listen, I think the one thing he will bring, and you mentioned his history, obviously, in the heart of midfield for Liverpool, and in the heart of midfield for Barcelona, he brings a winning mentality. And one thing you could definitely say about the Inter Miami midfield and the defense, frankly, as we saw in the playoffs, weak. And you will not see that with his team. They might lead the league in fouls for all we know, but
Yeah. I
at
mean,
least we'll see some hard work.
and you look around the landscape. Is there anything really more appetizing, maybe better fit for the team? I don't know.
No, and I think you're not going to, given the fact that the European season had already started, and of course the exception is Manchester United. They paid a release clause mid-season to require Ruben Amorim. The majority of managers that you would want are either building their team in the offseason with MLS, or they're actively coaching a team in Europe, and or in South America if they want to bring in a manager possibly from the Brazilian league, the Brasileirão. I think he just didn't have many better options, and at least he's familiar with the club. He's familiar with the talent at the youth level. He helped develop a couple of them. Can he turn that team into an MLS Cup winning squad against some of these teams like New York Red Bull, the 7th place team who pushed all the way to the Cup, against LA Galaxy, who has arguably the best roster in the league, against LAFC, who, if they had Carlos Vela healthy, might have been in the final themselves. So, uphill battle at best. At best. We'll see. I hope I'm wrong. I love watching Inter Miami play. I hope I'm wrong.
Hey, an international transfer just went across the wire right here from New York to Saudi Arabia for $2 billion. Juan Soto has been sold to the Saudi Arabian camel racing team.
I thought he was gonna play next to Cristiano Ronaldo in the outfield.
Maybe.
Well, Nick, we appreciate you giving us an hour of your time. Thanks for coming on. Definitely going to have you back. Love chatting with you. Good stuff.
Thank you, guys. We'll have to get the lacrosse topic going on another show. I don't know if you know, I played at Vanderbilt and Miami.
Oh, yeah?
Yes, sir. No soccer, though. I was absolutely terrible at that. That's just a side passion.
My daughter's at Dominican University now playing as a freshman. And my son played in college until he realized that college wasn't for him.
Well, there you go.
and I grew up playing in New England preparatory school, and I played out at Moravian College, now university, way back when. Yeah, that's so awesome. we can definitely have that chat.
We can chop that up. Well, thanks AJ, thanks Matt. I appreciate it. Sorry again about the video quality. We'll be back home in the studio next week. Maybe I'll look a little better.
No, you're good, man.
You're good. Everything was perfect. And tune in tomorrow night at 7 p.m. for the Bleacher Brothers show. All right, we had a big show, huge show tomorrow night. Like Trumpish, humongously the biggest of all big shows ever done. It'll be Donald Trump worthy tomorrow night.
Love it. Thanks,
AJ,
gentlemen.
Thanks for coming on. Remember, everybody, you'll never walk alone. See you next week.
There's a goal.